Welcome to Bytevaria Talk, where we discuss interesting topics in the field of digitization. In the first two episodes, we talked about incubators and Industry 4.0, as the German coin term is, or Industry of Things. If you want further information, please go to our website bytevaria.com. Today, we invited an insider to talk a little bit more about startup companies. Welcome to Erik Podzuweit. He's CEO and co-founder of Scalable Capital, a company that provides globally diversified, personalized portfolios for wealth management. So, Erik, please tell a little bit more about what you do exactly.
Thank you for inviting me, and thanks for being here. So what we do is we are a FinTech company, meaning financial technology, and we manage other people's money, and we have developed a technology that does it cheaper and also better, more robust than the traditional industry and the traditional wealth manager from the banks. We offer our service through our desktop application and also through mobile. So we have an app for iOS, Apple, and also for the Android version. And here you can see on the go, real time, the portfolio allocation. So how much money is invested in which asset classes, how much is in stocks, how much is in bonds, government bonds alike. All the transactions that we've done, so complete transparencies, what the current strategy is, our forecast, how your money will develop in a good, in a expected, and in a bad scenario, what your monthly savings rate is. And basically we provide full transparency, all costs of what we do with your money, so that clients are at all time have a full look through of how their money is invested.
Okay, I'll come back to these statements a little bit later when we talk in depth about FinTech and about the differences between traditional banking and FinTechs. So, but one question at the beginning: why did you decide to found your own company?
The interesting thing, even though the financial industry is very competitive, you have lots of banks, hundreds of banks, fund managers, asset managers. Eventually, the service for a good, cost-efficient, customer-centric service for private investors, in our view, didn't exist yet. So we basically wanted to create a company that manages money in a way how I would like my money to be managed. This was the original abstract idea. And then we stuck our heads together, developed the business plan, went to investors, collected venture capital money, hired a team. We are now 32 people, 22 here in Munich. This is our headquarter, and 10 people in our London office, because we're in both markets. And from there, you just take it step by step and it evolves. But the original idea was we weren't satisfied with the service offering of the traditional industry. So we created, in our view, a better and cheaper way to manage other people's money.
Okay, so you already mentioned FinTech is a combination of financial technologies, financial services and technology. So did I get this right? The difference between my online banking service and your product is the idea how it's centered around the customer.
Exactly. So to compare it, for example, with a traditional bank, with a bank branch, the big difference is that we looked at the money management process and said that, or saw that a lot of cost factors that are there are not necessary for good money management. You don't need bank branches. You don't need salespeople. You don't need, sometimes you don't even need the fund manager. You can take these out, save the costs, and replace them with smart and good technology. This is at the core of what we do. The website, what you see, this is actually just 5% of the way. The real value creation goes on in the background, that we can provide a service at a quality and at a cost that is just not doable in the traditional industry, how the traditional industry with their cost structure has done it so far.
So this all sounds very interesting, and when we talk about FinTech, like this is almost synonymous to startup companies. At least that's my impression, and that FinTech and startups belong together. Look at your competition, or look at other FinTech companies. What are the most promising or the most exciting developments in the FinTech startup area?
In my view, the most interesting areas are companies that, apart from the cost factor that I've mentioned, provide a better quality with their services. And how can they do that? Because they're very, very, very focused on what they do. They're focused on a specific banking segment, or they're focused on a specific customer group. Yeah, because what you always have to keep in mind, there is not one fintech company that attacks the banking industry full front with all services. All the fintechs specialize. You have one fintech specializing on payments, one fintech specializing on foreign exchange transaction, one fintech specializing on money management like ourselves. So, and by specializing, by having the luxury not to cater to all your needs, but just to look at one specific area, this is a big luxury that you have as a new company who starts on the green field. And this can help you to build a service that has a better quality and a better value creation for the specific segment you have in mind. And on the other hand, what I find particularly interesting is companies in fintech that focus on mobile first. Mm-hmm. Because the first step of digitalization, we have seen this from the banking industry as well. You can do lots of stuff on your desktop application. But mobile first companies who really develop a product that centers around mobile technology, I think this is a very, very exciting area.
But everything you said, if I would be a bank manager, I wouldn't like what you are saying. So how much competition do you get from traditional banking institutes in your field, or how do those banks react? You're taking a huge part out of their value chain and their traditional products.
Yeah, the interesting thing is actually, if I look at, or if I give you some insight about our customers, our best customers are bankers. Yeah?
Okay.
This is by far the customer group that convert the fastest. This is why we also, in our advertisement strategy, especially in cities like Munich or London, where you have a strong financial community, where we focus on these people, because they immediately get the benefit of what we do. So if you talk to them one-on-one or in a scalable capital client relationship, they all like it. Yeah? When they think about, obviously, how the banking industry is changing, they see the big challenges. And it comes back to what I said in my last answer. It's not like you won't have any banks anymore in 10 years. Banks will be there in 10 years. They'll be there forever. But what will change is their approach of basically selling you all the services. Mm-hmm. And how it worked historically was, I as a bank got you as a customer with a product that is cheap or even for free, like the normal account. And then I later sold you services where I actually made money off you. Mm-hmm. Investment advice, credits, mortgages. And what has changed now is that I still use the traditional accounts and all the infrastructure, but the specialized services I'll use from someone else. And historically, the banks had a big advantage because it was very inconvenient to use 10 different banks for 10 different financial services. But this has changed because the convenience is now this. This is the hub for all your financial service activities. So sending money abroad, you use PayPal. Investing money, you'll use Scalable Capital. And it's not like you have to walk down the block anymore. Mm-hmm. It's just one click away. So this inconvenience of using lots of different providers for different services has gone away because, as I said, mobile is a big changer in this. And so banks will still be there, but they'll have to change drastically. They can't rely on getting a customer and then cross-selling services. They have to specialize. And they deliberately have to drop certain services and leave it to others and specialize on what they're really good at. The concept of this all finance banks, I think this will be gone in 10 years' time.
Could you give us some pieces of advice for startup companies or some best practices? Mm-hmm. What is it you need for being successful as a startup?
I mean, you could give lots of advice. My top 3 priorities, especially at the early stage of a startup, are start with the right team, have laser sharp focus, and get the right investors on board. So what do I mean by that? Team, you hear people mention that all the time, but it really can't be overstressed. Getting the right team is substantially more important than having the right idea. And so don't do it with your friends simply because you had a nice idea. Do it with the right people who have the right skill sets and where you have a good feeling that you can work with them through stressful times. That's very, very, very important. The second step is laser sharp focus. And what I mean by that is, as a startup, you will have lots of opportunities. And the death of a lot of startups is not the lack of opportunities, but rather having too much opportunities and following up on too many. Because your biggest resource is time. And your biggest constrained resource is time. So you really have to focus. You have to focus on the target customer that you want to speak to, so that you're not wasting your marketing money across too many channels trying to target too many people. So have a very clear target customer in mind. Focus on the right technology. Don't develop too many tools and too many features in the beginning. Focus is really the most important thing. So once you set your business idea into practice, the challenge is saying no much more often than saying yes to opportunities. And lastly, get the right investors. So investors obviously are important because you need money. If you don't want to finance it solely yourself, you need money to get it off the ground. But don't just take money from everyone, because in these markets, if you have a good team, if you have a good idea, it's not that hard, especially in Bavaria, of getting money. But don't just jump on the one paying the highest valuations or offering the most money. It's really getting the right investors. And for me, what is the right investor? It's an investor who thinks like a founder. So basically someone who doesn't go in the beginning at least, into all the nitty-gritty details and wants to talk about every number, because numbers are all in the future. You need to find someone who understands that there is a certain pain point. Yeah, for example, in our case, no real good alternatives for private investors to invest their money, and who sees that you have an opportunity and you have a team in place to basically solve this pain point, that you developed a painkiller. And someone who basically thinks in these entrepreneurial terms. These are the right investors.
So you mentioned you have 2 offices, one in London and one in Munich. What drove your decisions to be headquartered here in Munich?
Mm-hmm.
London seems pretty obvious as a hub for wealth management worldwide. Why Munich?
Because we believed at that time, and it also proved itself, that Munich is actually one of the best and also cheapest places in Europe to found technology companies. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And why cheap? Because the rent is more expensive than at other places and you have to pay people more. One is it's much easier to recruit technical people. You have much more computer scientists here than in any other city in Germany. Secondly, the fluctuation is not as high. So once you get people, you basically keep them. So you don't have to train them and search for new people as often as in other cities. And another big factor is the good working regulators and bureaucracies here, because we work in a very regulated environment. We have a license from the BaFin, mm-hmm. the German financial regulator, and from the Bundesbank, and one from the FCA in London. And it's really very, very important that you work with a good regulator. And Bavaria is actually known, the BaFin and the Bundesbank especially, to be very fast and very pragmatic. And that was also our experience. Yeah? And lastly, it's the university. So Professor Mitnick from the LMU here in Munich was of great help. And you can see this in other areas as well. The Silicon Valley wouldn't exist without Stanford and University and Berkeley. It's just a huge advantage to get good technical people, good technical staff out of these universities. And Munich has a perfect playground for this. You have very good technical universities. And lastly, just to name the last factor, is money. You have it's hard to find another city, especially in Germany, that has so many just money, investors, also private investors, big companies with lots of resources that you could partner with. So it's basically the combination, as I said, hiring good technical staff, the universities, and good regulators, a functioning bureaucracy infrastructure.
Your company is already over 1 year old, so this is an age where almost 50% of startups are already not in business anymore. Could you tell us what helped you in the beginning, in the first few months of doing business here in Munich?
Well, so the founding story began at Werk 1. That's a local startup hub here in Munich, and that provided very good, all-inclusive and also cheap office space for us. We started there with originally 3 people sitting around a table, and then we had to move out when we had 9 programmers in one room sitting around the table. And that was very helpful. First of all, because it connected us with a lot of other innovative startups. And also you had a lot of events where we also met politicians and were invited to the Bayerische Finanzgipfel, for example, where we made very important business contacts that led to eventually actually doing business. So the Bavarian government, so to speak, supported us as well.
Erik, thank you very much for these valuable insights today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed bytevaria talk. Please go to our website to download further information. And if you have interesting stories to tell, please contact us and watch the following episodes of bytevaria talk. Thank you very much.